the American people are really disgusted by this deep state ruling class of the United States, which has spent trillions and trillions of dollars of our money on these useless, what they view as video games, I think, but are causing rivers of bloodshed in Ukraine and in the Middle East and in Africa. So this is the question. The deep state would like to continue playing. For them, it's just chips at the poker table. The American people are sick of it. The Ukrainian people would like peace, but they're led by a dictator, a little dictatorial regime backed by the United States, which doesn't ask the opinion. And instead, it drags young people off the streets, throws them to the front line to their deaths. And this is what we call American-style democracy. So the whole thing is surrealistic. And if you ask me what's going to happen, I can't tell you, because on the one side, we've heard calls for peace by Trump and by Vance, the vice president-elect. On the other hand, we have a deep state which is hubris to the core, and which loves playing poker with other people's lives and other people's money.
Can you explain what forms that deep state?
The deep state is the CIA, the Pentagon, the arms contractors, the particular Armed Services Committee and intelligence committees in the Congress that determine what tiny congressional oversight there is over all of this. But this is a big money machine, about $1.5 trillion a year. It's again a poker game from the point of view of these people. They're so poorly trained, so immoral, so ready to squander the lives of other people, so ready to put all of our lives at risk of nuclear war. But the deep state is what Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex, what others have called the military-industrial congressional academic complex, the Mickey Mac complex, and media is in there. We're ruled by a set of agencies that are unaccountable, that operate on classified documents, though we can see what's going on, but we're not told what's going on. And they basically, when you mentioned, more billions of aid, this is so basically unaccountable. When you mention Biden approving deep strikes inside Russia, what is this? First of all, is Biden even mentally competent at this point? Doubtful by most inside accounts. So somebody has gotten the president or a robo machine to sign a statement, no oversight at all by anybody, no honest explanation. We were even lied about the dates. We were told that the decision to allow these strikes came in the fall, but then a New York Times article a few days ago said, no, they were made in the spring. They just weren't told to the American people until the fall. So this is what the deep state is. It's a secretive, unaccountable, small number of institutions and individuals who control the CIA and the military operations and the ancillary sanctions regimes and other coercive policy measures exercised by the U.S. government. Which would mean the war continues, escalation. Orwell, of course, portrayed a world that was a perpetual war. That was his vision of the great empires always fighting proxy wars on their borders, that would be the permanent state of affairs. It's not it's not a vision to be discounted in terms of forecasts.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to China, I don't think there are any green offshoots that might be there vis-a-vis Russia. Am I correct in assuming that?
Well, the rhetoric is all in the other way. China's the great threat. China's the pure competitor. China must be stopped. China must be contained. China wants to take over the world. Again, it's just hard to imagine how juvenile all of this is. These are grown-ups, but my God, did they get a high school education? I don't understand it. The level of the lack of specificity, the lack of nuance, the lack of shading, the certitudes. China wants to take over the world, this kind of thing. This is comic book stuff. And maybe, this is just the generation that grew up on comic books or grew up on video games. Maybe they can't think anymore. I don't know. There are many theories about how primitive all of this is, or that it's just the grandiosity of empire. But there isn't right now much glimmer vis-a-vis China, except for one thing I would add, which is that remember the big financial backers of the incoming government, and maybe this is a fundamental point, it is the tech sector, it is the venture capital sector. They do a lot of business with China. So the question is, in the end, is it their business with the Pentagon or is their business with China, which is going to be, the determining factor? Maybe that is the right way to understand this. But if there is a glimmer of hope, it is that the tech sector says, come on, we want to make money. We don't want to have a nuclear Armageddon.
I think this is a good segue to talk a little bit about a column that you wrote about the emergence of the Global South. And we really like the politics and the spirit of your article. You said that in the 1990s, roughly about 45% of global GDP was contributed. I might be slightly wrong, I'm quoting from my memory. 45% of global GDP was held by the G7, and it was about 19% by the BRICS nation, and it has now come down to 29-35, which implies that there is an emergence. And we are a Global South channel, and the problem that we found in your article was that it doesn't take into account that a lot of that BRICS plus GDP comes from China. We had economist Professor Jayati Ghosh on our show, and she wrote an article covering Thailand, India, Vietnam, and one more in South Asia, and she showed that there is literally no convergence, if you like, be that in per capita terms or be that in pure growth, aggregate growth terms. And secondly, I think what your article misses is what you just said, is the dominance of the tech sector when it comes to the US. Which is when, if you look at the capital markets, for instance, like out of the 14-15 trillion equity and debt market, 65 to 70% still flows into the United States. The massive dominance of the Fortune's 500s are still almost US dominance, about 70% of those indices. So my question to you is that when we read your column, we felt that Professor Sachs is a bit naive about this emergence of the Global South. Your response to that?
Januarsalget I gang hos Bohus.
Well, my point is that the technologies that will move the world economy forward are basically widely accessible by large countries or regional groups that aim to access them. I am not worried about India's potential for rapid economic development, for example. India, with its scale, its skills, its knowledge base, its digital backbone as it is right now, has every possibility of making surging economic growth in the next 25 years. If I could make one suggestion to that, it would be invest in knowledge of the population. Education is by far the most important strategic investment for any economy anywhere in the world. Make sure that young people are in school, physically or online, are learning math, are learning science, are learning other skills. And then, to my mind, this is a worldwide opportunity. It's true, right now, the United States and China dominate some of these technologies, but they don't have a lock on them. Certainly, the United States does not, though its capital market is the deepest of all. China's not far behind or is ahead in many crucial technologies. I'm talking about supercomputing, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, certainly manufacturing, supply chains, 5G, and so forth. So between the US and China, I don't find that the US has a decisive choke point because NVIDIA or ASLM can produce chips that are going to make sure that the United States dominates. To my mind, this is not how the real world works. And India, I don't find with any fundamental obstacle in that regard as well. And I would say the myths about Russia being a gas station with nuclear weapons have been proven to be absurd in the Ukraine war, because not only has Russia held its own against all of the NATO weapon systems, it's proved to be an enormously innovative country in being able to design and produce its own weapon systems. And of course, not just weapon systems. And I believe that Africa, if it gets its act together, also 1.4 billion people, the same size as India and China, but 55 countries because of the imperial legacy, if it gets its act together to be unified, could have the world's fastest catching up period. I want to put every African child onto online education and a device in addition to their schooling, because the most important thing for Africa is a generation of rapid skill building, which is completely within reach right now. So, no, my view is nobody owns science, nobody owns these technological knowledge, no one owns the 50,000 or 100,000 online journals in which the technologies and the science are laid out. Yes, OpenAI may be 2 years ahead or 3 years ahead or 6 months ahead or 2 months ahead on some things. There'll be new discoveries, new breakthroughs, but invest in the technologies, in the knowledge, especially in the education, and then the possibilities for pervasive convergence, I believe, are very, very real. And the beauty is, this stuff is not so expensive. It's not that the investments are completely beyond what is achievable. I like the fact that when I am in India, in the most remote rural area, the vegetable vendor has a QR code for online payments. Okay, come on. Who expected that 10 years ago or 20 years ago? This is what is absolutely possible everywhere, and it makes economic life, the potential, so much more efficient if we get organized. Last time I was in UP in a very remote rural area, a farmers cooperative was actually it was in training the first day for using drones for precision agriculture on the fields. But there were the drones there, and they were taking their first lessons in this, and that's going to tremendously boost agricultural productivity. So I'm an optimist if we don't blow ourselves up.